Hi, everybody. I hope you've had a great day. I always just ramble until I see at least a few people who are on this. Is that what I'm supposed to do? I don't know. Hi, Anne. Um, I hope you've had a good day. I have had a weird day because I didn't get very much sleep last night because of a silly thing that I did. And the storytelling part of me would love to tell you why, but but kind of this new part of me doesn't really want to tell you because it might loop into this old estimation of myself as being flighty and too much and too weird, or I know that I get to thinking and I come across like, see, I'm doing it now. I'm not finishing my sentences. When I get excited, I tend to like be like, like I just keep going because I'm thinking too much. But I've also really been a willing, guilt-ridden participant in teaching people or confirming how people might think of me in a way that I'm not. And so, yes, I like didn't look in this one place to confirm this thing, and then it made me stay up really late last night. And this morning I was like, oh, like, why didn't you check this instead of doing all that work? But we all do stuff like that, right? Like, so it's not because of how horrible I am or anything like that. And I hope you're applying this to yourself. I'm so over the self-judging, and you're going to hear so much more about that in the future. And it's kind of really, like I've said before, it's kind of really fascinating experience reading this book and digging into how it was just like another limb. The self-judging was constant. And I'm having to really feel it in my body in order to tell you to read it well and properly. So, on the one hand, I don't know if I mentioned this. On the one hand, I'm discovering ways that I haven't changed at all, which is really humbling. It's really humbling, gotta say. It's really humbling. And then there are parts where I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I used to think that. So welcome. I am reading my book. I'm going to show just enough so that Facebook never thinks this is bad. The Oat Project, it's a memoir. There is a link in the description if you want to catch up. These are averaging between 45 and minutes to an hour. I'm going at least one chapter. Sometimes last night I did 2 chapters because the second one was only 4 pages long and it was kind of a poem. So I'm going to read around that amount of time. Today, if you want to know one other weird thing about me, I rarely use bookmarks. I love the art of bookmarks, but I have this probably something that I need to let go. I have this sort of little tiny intellectual whip inside my head, like, you should be able to remember where you are in a book, and if you don't, then you're not reading it closely enough. But there's probably also like childish pride there, like, I remember where I was. I'm just flipping through right now, going like this because of page numbers. So, pink plastic and the swing of sex. I'm going to take a drink of not whiskey. That's what we call my tea. Wonderful, Chandra. Keep that up. Okay. Are we ready? I can't believe I'm telling you this story. Okay. Here we go. TMI. The candle story. No. I have to stop. I'm sorry. I'm talking a little bit more than usual. I told this story in the middle of Ivy Wild school, like 2 or 3 years ago, in the middle of a group of women, had no idea that everyone was listening all around us. And I was exhausted from house sitting and chickens and all this stuff. I told the story in public. I still can't believe it. Anyway, okay, here we go. The candle story. I met Jack, my husband, in Florida 3 weeks before my family moved to Colorado. I was active in a huge church, singing on the worship team, founder of the drama ministry, taught Sunday school, a leader in the singles ministry. I stayed in Florida. Evelyn, whose husband was a gynecologist, had gone on and on about Jack for months before finally setting us up on a date. It was going well, but 6 months later, I decided to join my family in Colorado Springs to get a job in publishing. The night before we left, Jack was helping me move. The church threw me a farewell party, a roast. Before the party, I had promised Evelyn I'd go see her husband. I had never been to a gynecologist. I was 26. I was a virgin. Jack went with me since we were going to the party after the "it won't take but a minute" appointment. It was Saturday, and the office was closed. Evelyn was the nurse at my side, holding my hand, telling me it was going to be fine. Dr. Travis was gentle, explaining everything as it went along. There was a little sharp stab of pain, and then he stopped. "Is that it?" I asked. "I'm probably not going to look at you anymore." "Is that it?" I asked. If so, Evelyn was right. It hurt for only a second. Dr. Travis said, "No, not exactly." He wasn't looking me in the eyes. Panic started its engine. He snapped off his gloves and sat back. I could feel worry wafting off Evelyn next to me. He sighed. "Your hymen is 5 millimeters thick, completely grown over, Janae." I was confused. "What does that mean?" "There are 2 pinprick-sized holes through which I assume you've been menstruating." He paused, his eyes serious and brow furrowed. "Frankly, I'm shocked you don't have endometriosis or other problems." I didn't know what to say. "Have you ever used tampons?" he asked. I shook my head. I've never been able to figure out where they were supposed to go, though I did get one up somewhere once in college, but it was so uncomfortable I took it out after an hour or so. "Well, I don't know where you put it," he said, laughing. "In my 20 years practicing, I've never seen this." Light dawned. Oh, I only thought I got it up there, didn't I? It had felt like a wadded up diaper crammed in my panties. No wonder. "I could schedule outpatient surgery in Colorado for you, Janae, but that would cost a lot." Because it was impossible to keep the area sterile anyway, he said he could do the surgery right then in the office, that it was minimally different from doing it in a hospital, and he would not charge me. I profusely thanked him and asked what the procedure was like. Evelyn updated Jack, waiting out in the hall. How I would love to know what she told him. Dr. Travis explained how he had to clamp the tissue, allow it to numb for a few seconds, then snip it. He had to do this several times to get through the whole thing. Ouch, but let's do it now, I said. Might as well. It hurt like hell. Seconds truly can seem like eternity. When it was done, Dr. Travis said that over the next few weeks, I had to prevent it from growing back while allowing it to heal. Perhaps a doctor presented with a normal 26-year-old and her serious boyfriend would give different advice, like twice-a-day sex. Or, as he knew I was a virgin and staying that way, a dildo. But I did not even know the word. Parentheses. And for you guys joining me for the first time, parentheses means it is from the present, like 2016, not from 2007 when I did the book. I have since wondered if he hinted at having sex or using a dildo, carefully polling to see if either was known to me. If he did, my lack of response told him otherwise. I was me, and Dr. Travis went to my church. So instead of sex, clinically proven to have been thus far physically impossible, he prescribed a candle. Jack and I, gingerly, traipsed to the grocery store. We stood before the surprisingly extensive candle section, and I realized Dr. Travis had not told me how large a candle to use. Maybe he forgot? The question hung over us like the birthday balloons crowding the aisle above our heads. So, I started. I cleared my throat. So how big? You may wonder at my asking this. I had never touched Jack anywhere down there. I had no clue. And, breathing out, I quickly said, "How thick?" Jack pointed to a surprisingly hefty option. "I think this will work," he said. My eyebrows rose as I picked it up. I think I'm supposed to be impressed. Maybe I am. Candle, check. We went to find a lubricant, a word I had not known before Dr. Travis prescribed the candle. We walked to the front of the store, and I looked at the cashiers, many of whom I knew and chatted with weekly. I can't do it. I was simply too embarrassed to buy the items in my basket. "Jack, I can't do it." I looked up at him, begging forgiveness in my eyes. "I am so sorry to ask, but could you please come back and get these?" I still have no idea how he really felt it back then, besides loving me, but he took me home and went back alone. Again, we had been dating only 6 months. Parentheses. I learned years later, when I told this story to a group of ladies at a party with wine-filled hilarity, why one should not send one's boyfriend by himself to purchase a candle and lube. I asked Jack about it, and he said the cashier had raised her eyebrows and given him a look that could kill. At my going away party roast, I sat laughing genuinely at their stories. But as pain from the surgery increased, I had to force the laughing. They'd compiled a video of my time singing and acting. They performed sketches of things we had done as a group, in which I was played by this girl who had never seemed to like me, in which she mercilessly made fun of how I was and who I was. She clearly enjoyed it. Parentheses. Perhaps my estimation of her glee was tinged with my body's pain. But I made it through, overwhelmed by the love of my friends and all the hundreds of people, knowing I would miss them. We left for Colorado the next day. On the trip, and for the month Jack stayed, to see if he wanted to move out with me, he knew exactly what I was doing in the bathroom twice a day. The candle worked, but boy howdy was it embarrassing for this then virgin, for Jack, to know such intimacies. Parentheses. Now I recall the doctor saying something like, "Well, if you had tried to have sex before this, I don't like to think what would have happened." It's ironic. I wonder if I'd been emotionally healthier if I'd had sex with Jack before our wedding night, a year and a half after the candle story. But the doctor's head shaking told me it would have been physically disastrous. Who knows how it would have gone, even with modern medicine. In another era, I would have been either dead on the wedding night or alive but relegated to a convent. Was Dr. Travis perhaps incredulous? Amused? Maybe he puzzled at what was wrong with this attractive, vivacious girl. If I were him, I'd wonder if no sex worked for both Jack and me, if we were even passionate. Journal. It's been over 10 years and 3 children since that candle, and I've still never seen a dildo. Are they the same as vibrators? My best friend from college is the only person I've ever known who told me she had one. Hers is purple sparkled. Maybe I can find one like that. Can she feel those sparkles inside? Do they make light-up dildos? Glow in the dark? I bet they do. And I bet they feel much better than a candle. Or would they? Maybe I'll have to test that theory. I'm excited about it. Look at that. It's supposed to be fun. When I told Aaron we were going to an implement store, I'm sorry. This part really still makes me kind of cry and laugh at the same time. That's all. Okay. Just spilled. Sorry. Hang on. Okay. It's supposed to be fun. When I told Erin we were going to an implement store, she was confused. Implements? She said. What do you mean? Implements, I said, smiling. Mechanical additions to sex. I expected her to laugh with me, to think my long-time misunderstanding of the word was cute. Oh, you mean toys. She looked at me, not laughing, seeming confused and worried, even a little sad. Why is she not finding my term funny? My smile faltered. It sounds medical, not fun, Janae, she said, like she was trying to figure me out. Why implements? Her eyes were filled with compassion. No, pity. It was pity. I started panicking. I was so absolutely clueless. It was fine if friends laughed at me, but pity? Why hadn't I not known they were called toys? I thought back on my experience with sex, well, experience with Jack, and knew I didn't think of sex as mechanical. I liked sex, and I liked it all by itself, no toys necessary. But do I think that only because I don't know? I had researched this task, and boy howdy, searching for, quote, sex stores Colorado Springs yielded more questions than answers. Vaginal dams, what the hell are those, and why, and will the store have them so I can see? I also saw an ad for a snazzy pubic hair trimmer. Should I use another word? Muff? With, Lord forbid, an arrow stencil. Would its meaning change, pointing up or down? I'm going to do that. Journal. I don't know why I've assumed this, but I thought that implements made regular sex harder. But what do I mean by harder? Do I mean longer? Is that bad or good? Our sex life has been so bounded and defined by having children that maybe I do mean longer, because many times we've been interrupted by the noise, not the presence, thankfully, of the children. Do toys make orgasm take longer? Not that I've ever had a problem with that, sometimes the contrary. Do they desensitize things? Whenever I've brought this issue up in the company of couples, most, Christians included, seem to assume that everyone, especially married couples, uses implements, toys, I mean. But do they then have to use them all the time? I hate this honesty. I know it's good for me to admit these things, to work through them, but I just don't want to. Is that why I've always been so horrible at journaling? 2 years in between entries spread across 5 journals, all gifts from friends who thought I'd use them. I'm so sick and tired of admitting my innermost thoughts. But I made this a project, so I must be honest and real, which usually means TMI, too much information. Crud. Up for this? I had used birth control for almost 2 years when we first married, but it messed up my emotions so much that I decided to stop. It felt like it was killing me. So I decided to use condoms. Jack said he didn't mind. The week before my last pill, I had a period. That was normal. I thought I'd ovulate the usual 12 to 14 days later, but my ovary dropped an egg the day after that last pill. That was normal too, except I didn't know. That egg was our firstborn, Sage. Our best friends at church once said marriage is truly becoming one flesh, so nothing is out of bounds. Pleasuring each other in whatever ways both of you want is never wrong. I wondered if they had ever been inside one of those stores. After telling Jack our agenda for the weekend, I asked him what he thought of going to the sex store. You know, Going to the store means we have to buy something, and that means we have to use it, I said, waggling my eyebrows. Keep it light, keep it light. Okay, he said. What do you think about that? I asked. I had put this task on the list, but was so afraid he wouldn't want to go. It's fine. So you're up for that? He laughed. Parentheses. Only recently did I realize why he laughed. My inadvertent pun. Why didn't I get the pun then? Jack was not dick-centric, or I was so inexperienced I didn't realize it. I could blame him for not teaching me, but he wasn't super experienced and was never the sort to teach. I really have no idea. Plenty has been written and researched that not all men want women to act like slaves to their cock. I didn't know enough to craft our own path in this. Sure, he said. Oh no, he's still smiling, but, quote, sure is what he says when he's agreeing with me only to avoid conflict or change or doesn't like the suggestion. Have you thought about doing this before now? I asked. Not really. Not sure I should ask this, but what the hell? Why do you think that is? I asked. I don't know, but I think the kids have a lot to do with it. I feel like we've lost 6 years, he said. Of sex? Yeah. As he said this, the weight of it bore down on me full force. I felt lost. He felt the same way I did, but I'd assumed he simply didn't want me for so long that it was hard for me to comprehend what he said. He was right. The best sex we had was while I was pregnant because there was no risk of getting pregnant. We had planned on having kids and absolutely adored them, but we felt overwhelmed by parenthood, especially the lack of sleep. With my body's changes bringing more depression and panic and the financial uncertainty of being self-employed, it had felt like a fast, stressful several years. Is it different for others? Every time I've mentioned it to parent friends, they've said, usually with great feeling, kids change everything. But maybe we all mean different things by that. Parentheses. This took such courage for Jack to say. We should have explored it with a counselor long before this, but we had no funds for therapy. And I felt guilty and resentful at feeling guilty because I had gone off the pill and forced us to use condoms. If I'd stayed on it, would we have felt freedom in sex and explored together? Unlinked the possibility of pregnancy every time? I had also felt increasing resentment that he wouldn't consider a vasectomy. So many of our friends had gone that route, and it seemed like a simple procedure. But I can't judge him harshly. You simply never know what excites unbearable horror in someone. I think, and no, I never asked him. Surgery horrified Jack. After he saw photos of it online, neither of our sons was circumcised. So, condoms. Cheesecake. I sat at the bar in Wiglin's Deli eating lunch. What's next on your list, Janae? Asked one of the guys behind the counter. I sat up straighter, knowing I had to be okay with talking about things like going to the sex store, but worried what they would think. The guy who asked, Alan, was like a walking porn star. No. Not porn star. Porn store. Okay. Sorry. It's funny. The guy who asked, Alan, was like a walking porn store, video and novel all rolled into one. Brash, spastic, and fun. He had looked at the summer's Red Rocks concert lineup and insisted I would love the band 311. I trusted his opinion and immersed myself in their music. 311 and melodies had become my summer soundtrack. Jack and I are going to the sex store to look at things, I said, lifting my chin bravely, my face daring them to tease me. I'd almost said implements. Their faces lit up. Sweet, Alan said. Phew. Are you going to buy something? Well, we need to watch a porn movie for one of the tasks, so I thought we'd rent one, I said. Porn costs $60 to rent, he said. Buy it. Holy cow. I had no idea, I said. I had planned to buy something inexpensive but fun, with not a clue what it might be. Doing the project had already cost more than planned, with doing tasks and money I spent at coffee shops while recording the experience. The anticipation of going to the store is half of it, you know, Alan said. You start off titillated, wondering if anyone's going to see you, what's going to happen, what you'll see. My brow furrowed in confusion. Buy it and give it to me, he said. It could be our porn sink, like a heat sink, absorbing the excess. Will we need that? I couldn't imagine wanting to watch those movies more than once. I ate my food while their conversation swirled around me. 4 guys 15 years younger than me, and they are all so experienced, they take this knowledge for granted. And you'll pay top dollar at any store for what you practically stumble over online, he said. Their blasé attitudes amplified my fear instead of helping. Alan's matter-of-fact descriptions of implements, toys, Janae, toys, and about kinkier stuff showed I'd asked the right people. He had an experienced assurance. I was so gullible. Does doing this stuff make normal, everyday sex boring, I asked? Does it raise the bar so much that it ruins everything less crazy? They all shook their heads no. Not at all, Alan said. Some days you want crazy, and other days you want to be warm and held, gentle. So it's like food. How most days you eat beans and rice, and it's good and satisfying, but then other days you want to eat out for a really rich meal, I asked. No, Alan said, because we all want that rich meal every day, don't we? He seemed mystified by my food analogy. I compared everything in life to food. Well, but take cheesecake, I said. We don't want to eat cheesecake every day, otherwise we'd get fat. I don't know one person who doesn't want to eat cheesecake every day, said Alan. Woogland's cheesecake is famously delicious. Listen, don't compare it to food. It will never work. Why not? I asked. Because sex is so much more complex and rich than food ever could be. It's all wrapped up in emotion and passion and pleasure. It involves so much more of you than eating does. Some days you want something different. Some days you want something more, he said. I think I get what he means. I didn't. But I persisted, cheesecake makes you fat. And as much as anybody loves it, not many would eat it every day. He looked exasperated while I continued. Wouldn't kink all the time degrade less crazy sex? Desensitizing skin everywhere? Does the use of toys require their use later in order to be satisfied? Is sexual satisfaction a sliding scale with diminishing returns if you indulge in them? He shook his head, but I insisted. Here's an example. I held out my right hand. There's a little callus where the pen rubs my finger. Pen use demands a response from my skin, and extra tougher skin was the result. I took a deep breath. Just say the words, Janae. Would a clitoris respond in the same way with the use of intense toys? It's like my finger, only more sensitive. Can prostitutes perform like they must without involving their heart and soul because their body is so used to the sensations that it takes far beyond the usual stimulation to excite them? Why would it be different between married people? Alan insisted. Because sex in a committed relationship is so varied and complex, all of it only enriches the rest of it. It's all fun. Parentheses. It took me a long time to understand. I kept trying to make the food analogy work because I was unfamiliar with the intimacy of a no-holds-barred sex life. I was taught that some foods are good and others bad. Cheesecake makes you fat. Alan described a full house of all-night sex in front of each other and with multiple partners, the smell of the house at dawn, the awkwardness of the morning after, talking to a guy next to whom he had, quote, banged a girl. Then he said, but I wouldn't want my wife to have done all this stuff. What do you mean, Alan? I asked. Well, I wouldn't marry a girl who'd done all this, he said. Isn't that something of a double standard, he said. Yes. So you'd want to teach her yourself, I asked. Yep, he said. Is your current girlfriend like that? No, he said, grinning. She says she's in love with my penis, and she's almost sure she's never been with a more passionate partner. Almost sure? I said. Alan, she knows who she's been with. He looked stunned. Women remember these things, unless she's been with so many men it's a blur. His face stunned all over again. But what did it do to the relationship? Is it an escalating need for titillation? That's what I'm afraid of. Yeah, good old Alan. Hi, guys. Here we go. Hang on tight. I'm not going to say that's what she said. Okay. All right. Report. Essentials. Colorado Springs does have sex shops, but they are relegated to the dicey parts of town. Colorado Springs people, remember this was in 2007. There are a few now, apparently. Okay. But they are relegated to the dicey parts of town. It's not that vice doesn't exist here, but the city became much more conservative over the decades since Focus on the Family moved into the north side of town. Hundreds of Christian organizations followed, transforming this already conservative, from the influence of 5 military bases, small city, into an evangelical mecca. I considered heading to Denver to experience a mega sex mart, but this was about finding the wild where you are. So there we were, parking in a nondescript strip mall in a seedy part of town. I must have looked nervous because Jack asked, "Are you okay? Ready?" "Are you?" I countered, avoiding. He laughed and said, "I should have worn jeans." "Why?" He just asked me how I'm feeling, and now he's talking about clothes? "To hide the bulge better," he said. "What are you talking about?" I asked, utterly confused and worried he really didn't want to be here but wasn't telling me outright. The bulge, Janae," he said, pointing at his crotch, laughing. "I'm going to be looking at lots of pictures of naked women. What do you think is going to happen?" Oh, he's laughing. Is he actually worried he'll be walking through the store with a heart on? Does this sort of thing happen all the time and I've never noticed? Is something wrong with me? Parentheses. Now I read words like this and just shake my head. The storefront was smaller than I had expected, crammed with dazzling products. Martha Stewart has not been here, that's for sure. I had not expected it to be so relentlessly tacky. I stood there with my husband in the face of racks of red and pink lingerie, feather boas and stockings, and debated with myself. Is futurotic tacky or funny? Is anything beyond minimalist unrefined? Flamboyance can be tasteful, yes. Look at the flamingo. A more beautiful, refined bird you will not find, but its pink plastic caricature is the epitome of tacky. I was so judgy. Oh my God. We did not talk much as we walked the narrow aisles. They must be catering to demand with all the hot pink plastic. Perhaps people need it to be tacky so they can laugh it off if it doesn't work? We pointed at this and that, laughing quietly or giving each other perplexing looks. We finally found the video section and its scads of categories. Straight, gay, fetish, BDSM, bi, lesbian, threesome, and on into vistas I couldn't comprehend. We balked from buying one. It was all so fake, contrived. The cover photos confused me too. The models attempted excited, but they looked bored. So porn is not the province of acting excellence? Am I surprised? Why are so many of the women's areolas so large? I thought that was considered unattractive, but maybe men don't watch these for refined areolas. Mine changed size when nursing and not. Sorry, I would so edit that part. Okay, mine changed size when nursing. Is that normal? And are they still attractive both ways? I liked the silly stuff best. The butt plug ring toss game, candy underwear. When I pointed them out to Jack, though, he moved on, probably thinking I was kidding about buying it. I was overwhelmed with how expensive it all was, which dampened some of my enthusiasm. As I expected, most products were filled with propylene glycol and parabens. I'm not about to use that crap. Maybe I'll start a line of organic personal products. They've got to be out there already somewhere. Would I be more likely to try stuff made of wood, bamboo, and rock? No hint of hot pink on the packaging? I'm afraid so, especially if it gave a mini history of where they were first used and how it was invented. Is something wrong with me if pink latex doesn't turn me on? Am I un-American? On the one hand, I had never seen or imagined stuff like this, or using it. But I was also surprised I wasn't shocked. Have I become so open I've tipped over into jaded? Or is my imagination so fertile? It was the latter. The language on the packaging was so non-medical. I guess cock is a pretty old term, but so is penis. They use the word vagina, so why all the euphemisms for the male member? Penis, I mean. I liked the sexy lingerie, but it was all itchy. I would have preferred silk crotchless panties, but I grabbed a white fishnet crotchless body stocking and red nylon panties, even as my mind flung itself from hope Jack would want me to wear them and fear that we would never discuss or try it, or if I put them on, I'd be ignored. Parentheses. I never wore either of them, though they still take up space in my lingerie drawer. Now this is more like it, Jack said. My heart quickened. Exactly the glee I had hoped to see on his face. It was a sex swing, a strappy contraption to enable positional ecstasies. $140? I couldn't tell if he seriously wanted to buy it. It cost 3 times as much as we had designated for this task. And our house was so small that finding a place to store it, let alone hang it, would be difficult. Visions of 7- and 4-year-olds playing on it danced through my horrified mind. Parentheses. Would I find it delightfully amusing now? How different can it be from how bendy I already am? Any position is possible and we haven't tried them. Why would this be different? Parentheses. I was so naive. We stood in front of that shelf for minutes, thinking our own thoughts. I thought he was kidding because of the cost. I don't know what he was really thinking, though maybe the swing would add an anti-gravity feel to it. Maybe I could find it on the internet at a discount. And we could put a hook on the bedroom ceiling and hide it in the already full closet. Maybe. We didn't buy it. Parentheses. I look back and rue this decision. $140 would have been worth every penny to inject play into our lovemaking. We walked out with a hot pink plastic, quote, lover's kit from Jenna somebody. We never used it. Those red panties and fishnets, a pubic hair trimmer complete with a lightning bolt stencil, never used it. Why? Why did I keep it all this time? Later, I thought an opportunity would come along. I wonder what we would have bought had money been no object. Would it have changed the outcome? Elephant in the bedroom. Most of the store and the stuff seemed designed to pleasure women. The few items designed to pleasure men seemed for gay sex. I considered buying a dildo or vibrator, but it seemed like overkill. For example, the jackrabbit style is designed to not only fill a woman, but to also rub her clitoris. Maybe I'd feel differently if I lost Jack, but it seems so harsh on such a sensitive area that I'd hate it. Maybe some women have a clitoris so desensitized they need that. I know men get off on pleasuring women, but it seems so one-sided. Are we that much harder to excite? I'm not, but are most women? Or is it the man's skill to prolong it for a woman? It pained me to think of what might be desperation behind the needs for all the things in that store. So many people live without love, without touch. I could understand why people might hire a prostitute or gigolo. I can also imagine being without Jack. I'm sure I can't completely imagine it. And the needs would be, yes, emotional, but also quite physical, so that a purely physical experience might assuage the emotional pain. Parentheses. What on earth was it like for Jack that I had no understanding of playful in the bedroom? From all I recall, we enjoyed sex. At least I did. and he seemed to, from what I could tell. I cast my mind back, and I'm appalled to find little recollection of sex with my husband. Why can't I remember it? It's not that it was bad. Indeed, from the perspective of dating since our marriage ended, it was fine, and we had more sex than the average couple. Was I blind? Wasn't I paying attention? Was I so focused on how I wanted our sex life to change that I missed how it already was? I could give in to simplicity and blame him. And for a while after leaving, I did. I know our problems were real, not imaginary. I wanted him to pursue me, but that was not how he was. So my resentment built and increased in both of us over the years, long before doing the project. Going to a sex store, having sex outside, or watching porn had little chance of helping. It would have been a kitty bandage on a severed limb. But I hoped. I really did. End parentheses. To my eyes, performance was a motivation in most of the things the store sold. Wouldn't sex with multiple partners result in a "how good are you" mentality? Need results in expectation. Expectation results in condition. And though we are never need-free and a relationship navigates needs, adding performance and skill on top of needs seemed destructive. The desire to give and receive is miles from the need to impress. Parentheses. Years later, my best friend said, "Maybe you shouldn't venture outside your safe experience lest you find your husband lacking in skill? That if you love him and he loves you, that should make the sex satisfying? That's what you thought, right? You were scared. You'd like a dildo better than him." But it wasn't, and I wasn't. It was more that I yearned to be overwhelmed with connection and intimacy, grounded in exploration. It didn't seem like skill or toys could heal my tender, hoping heart. Journal. What I came away with most was a feeling of my incredible luck in having Jack, and a deep sadness. While we are both relatively inexperienced and even awkward at times in our lovemaking, we have a foundation. Time to work on it. We're not afraid of leaving each other. We're not afraid we'll leave each other if our technical skill is low. If desire wavers, we talk about it. Same with an increase in desire. We try not to assume, to be honest, to not hide feelings or thoughts. Sex is like the rest of our relationship. I don't like the objectification of women, how beauty is one-faceted, only about the body in our society. And I respect how porn has ruined things for a couple of my friends' relationships. Parentheses. That dear journal entry was how I felt in my most optimistic moments. It was true, but incomplete, and so fraught. Is American society as repressed as I was? The answer is yes. But has our society changed profoundly since I was young? The straight line to yes is the proliferation of porn, pro and amateur, on the internet. And here's the thing. I had put the task of intentional sex on the list, hoping it would help things with Jack. I'd already gotten the joy of sex, planning to work through it cover to cover with him, but Jack didn't seem like he was in on this one. Now, I know there were probably many reasons. Then, it felt like utter rejection. A happy ending to that chapter. That is the end of chapter 8. And I'm reading your comments for the first time. Yeah, I said something about this before, and I will continue to say it because I really feel like it needs to be said. Jack and I are good friends, and we've co-parented the since 2008 when our marriage ended. And we don't like go out on dates or stuff, but we do family stuff all the time, and he's a great guy and he's my friend. And so it's really intense reading about how our marriage fell apart. You know, I know that we all look back on the past and wonder, you know, if I had been smarter or kinder or, you know, had more support or whatever, would I have made that same decision? I kind of think we just didn't work. I described it to my children once. You know, when you're drawing a picture and you have this beautiful vision in your mind, and by the end of it, it doesn't look anything like that. And sometimes things just don't work. And they didn't for us. Clearly, that's coming. But we tried, and I respect him as a person, and as he's a great dad and just a great contractor too, if you need one. But yeah, it's just it's kind of weird reading what I thought about that with what I know now, and dang growth. So tomorrow night is the first time I went to a rock concert. I went to one Christian one once, and it's called Head Spinning Noise. So I hope you'll join me tomorrow night at 7:30 Mountain Standard Time. And I really, really, really appreciate your being here with me, looking at this like it's kind of an end. We're putting a period on it, and then to go forward. So I really appreciate your kind of helping me do this. I don't think I really realized that until a day or two ago, that I would have just looked at my book and gone, oh, you know, I'll read it. But it's kind of intense. So have a great night, and thank you again. And if you have any questions, please ask. I'll take a look and do my best to respond without many spoilers. And eventually, if you have some questions, I'll do a post maybe that we can, in the event, so that we can start kind of a list for a hangout with Q&A or something like that. So take care. Love you. Happy Wednesday. And I'll see you tomorrow. Ciao. And look at you again.